Good morning. Thank you for being here. My name is Valerie Segrest, and I'm a member of the Muckleshoot Indian tribe, which is located just 30 miles south of Seattle at the base of the beautiful Mount Rainier, and we're in between the Green and White rivers. I work as a community nutritionist and a native foods educator, and for the past several years have coordinated the Muckleshoot Food Sovereignty Project. And when I first heard that term, food sovereignty, I thought, does that mean that plants and animals will have treaty rights and reservations? And because, in tribal communities, that term sovereignty really carries significant meaning. It means it's what upholds our right to practice our culture. And so I thought I was perplexed at the idea of food upholding its right to practice culture, and decided to research the term and found that it was a term that was coined in the early 1990s by a group of peasant farm workers called La Via Campesina. And they define it essentially as the right of a community to define its own diet and therefore shape its own food system. And that was really inspiring for me to think about as how people can become change agents in their own food system. So, but at the same time, really felt that tribal food sovereignty carried a different meaning, something unique. And I wanted to really take a look at that specifically to our region. So I spent some time researching ethnographic accounts. I have been collecting stories and teachings from my community for the last several years. And through research and applied practice, here's what I've come up with. In 1855, when my ancestor Pat Canham met with other tribal leaders and Governor Isaac Stevens to sign the Treaty of Point Elliott, he was the very first person to speak. And the very first thing that he spoke to was access to foods. We wanted access to all of the game, the fish, the shellfish, the roots, the berries, and the cedar tree. And so at the very moment when my ancestors were defining sovereignty, it is clear that the first priority was access to foods. So at the core of tribal sovereignty is food sovereignty. And this is significant because we know that our traditional foods are a pillar of our culture and that they feed much more than our physical bodies. They also feed our spirits. And this is because they're a living link with the land and with our legacy, helping us to always remember who we are and where we come from. Well, for the Coast Salish people, we see our traditional foods as more than just our foods and medicines. They're also our greatest teachers, and they teach us without a spoken word, which is much different than what we're used to today, or like what I'm doing today, where I'm standing here telling you about what I think food sovereignty means. They teach us by example, without a spoken word, and that's one of the most powerful teachings that could ever be given. So an example of that, a couple of examples would be that, every year we have these seasonal runs of ulican, or smelt fish, that would return to the rivers. And my elders tell me that when these fish would return to the river, they would be so abundant that the waters would look like they were boiling. And that when the herring would spawn, the blue river waters would turn a milky, creamy color. So We also have these runs of salmon here in the Northwest, where they would return traditionally upon the millions. And my elders tell me that these runs were so abundant that you could walk across the river by walking across the backs of those returning salmon. And the Coast Salish people see this return as an act of love and a demonstration of generosity and a teaching of abundance. And so we ask ourselves how we might live a life of such love and generosity and abundance as the salmon people do. We have the cedar tree in our culture, or what we call long life giver, who provides us with everything we need to survive in this world. Canoes for transportation, housing materials, basketry materials, clothing, medicine, and the aroma of all that is sacred in this world. Cedar tree stands tall against the fierce storms, side by side with other nations of tree people, taking root and holding the earth together, living its life as a teaching for those to come in the future, for all of us. And so we see this, and we ask ourselves how we might live in such a way where the story of our life is told as a teaching for those to come in the future. We have these really diverse lands here in the Puget Sound, these large mountain ranges that produce these fast-running rivers that flow to the waters of the Salish Sea. And in some places, it is just 50 miles from Whitecap to Whitecap. And within that short stretch of land, those rivers nourish our ancient food forests, our mountain berry meadows, our lilybulb prairies, and our rich shellfish gardens. We have a bond, one that is woven right into the social fabric of who we are, and that is with this land, with the Whitecap to the Whitecap. And we see this as a teaching of diversity and abundance. We know that pre-contact, nearly 300 different kinds of foods were eaten in a Coast Salish diet, which is very different from the westernized and superimposed diet many tribal folks consume today, which consists of anywhere between 13 and 20 different foods per year. We live in a time where these sacred friendships are threatened. The colonization and changing landscape of the Pacific Northwest has left us with less than 2% of our prairie lands. Our mountain berry meadows are dwindling every year as a result of poor harvesting practices, climate change, and the disregard of traditional ecological land management knowledge, which is inextricably intertwined with our cultural practices. These sacred friendships are being threatened. And, we have salmon runs that are dwindling every year. And archaeologists recently researched and found that the salmon has been a cultural keystone species for the Coast Salish people for back 10,000 years. 10,000 years, which is such an incredible demonstration of sustainable fisheries and an illustration of the depth of knowledge that tribes carry around fish management. 10,000 years is a tremendous amount of time, and we may be the generation that watches the last salmon come up the river. We have a tremendous amount of work to do. So it's, a loss of land, a loss of rights, a loss of knowledge, environmental toxins, cultural oppression, and a modern lifestyle that impedes our access to our traditional foods. And that is the important work of the Muckleshoot Food Sovereignty Project. This is a project that has emerged from our community and an attempt to overcome our barriers and increase access to our traditional foods. So we do this by using our community foods and medicines as an organizing tool. And we hold edible educational workshops and create platforms for tribal members to come and share their gift. And we see traditional food knowledge as a gift. So that means that if you know how to fillet a salmon or prepare an earthen oven, that knowledge is valued and brought out as a teaching for those who want to learn. We work with our tribal cooks to develop healthy food protocols that can be implemented from the daycare to the senior center. And some of those protocols include things like eating a traditional foods meal one day a week and menus inspired by local seasonal availability. We prioritize purchasing from community food producers like our tribal fishermen. And that's important because every year it's getting harder and harder to maintain a livelihood as a tribal fisherman. And once this Muckleshoot told me that he would be nobody without his fishing, that he tried to get a 9-to-5 once and became severely depressed. So the act of harvesting, hunting, and preparing our traditional foods are more than just feeding hunger and a sense of identity. It's also about our mental health and our own self-worth. So these are just a couple of examples that are happening in our community. And when we do hold our events, we always ask an elder to come and witness the work that we're doing. And their testimonies become our guiding light and our inspiration to continue our work in our community. So a couple of years ago, we installed an orchard at the Muckleshoot Tribal School. And I arrived there and found our honored elder standing on top of a pile of wood chips with all these little muckleshoots running around, throwing dirt at each other and playing in their new garden. And she turned to me with these huge tears in her eyes and said, this young man had just come to her and shared with her his experience planting a native crabapple tree, and that he learned that if we take care of this tree, it will live to be over 200 years old. And this young man said to his elder, that means that this tree will be feeding people long after I'm gone. And she said to me, I get it. I understand why this work is so important. And this story to me is the essence of cultural teachings. Here we have this young man who's outdoors, playing in the dirt, getting his hands in the dirt, getting to know a plant, and in that moment, experiencing a profound lesson of reciprocity and forward thinking. And then he was able to share that with his elder. These are the moments of healing that we're hungry for, and this is the medicine that we truly seek. So I'd love to tell you about all the other work that's happening in tribal communities throughout the Salish Sea, because we're just one example. But quickly, I'll run through that 3 examples. The Lummi tribe, Vanessa Cooper, a tribal member, has been coordinating with several Lummi families who receive community-supported agricultural boxes weekly. They meet and they do recipe sharing and talk about their dietary changes together as a group. The Nisqually tribe has an incredible community gardening program that grows fresh produce for their community members. And Tulalip has an impressive Growing Our Groceries garden program at the He-Bulb Cultural Center. And these are just some examples of numerous accounts of tribes rising up to overcome barriers, increase access to their traditional foods, and celebrate our food traditions in the process. So recently, somebody asked me, what do you think that this traditional foods movement is hungry for? And after some thought, I said, for us to remember. We're not doing anything new. This is just about remembering what we already know to be true and right. And then more importantly, sharing those memories in a way that promotes active citizenship and promotes us being active in our own food system. So I think about how important it is to remember those things, because it's feeding a hunger. And as we all know, when you feed something, it grows. So in closing, I'm remembering the teachings of the Salmon people who ceremoniously return to their ancestral rivers every year, and how they are the nation of people who are truly committed to life eternal. I'm remembering the teachings of the plants and the trees, taking root and in all their diversity, standing in solidarity, holding the earth together, and living their life as a teaching for those to come in the future. I remember that when we take better care of the land, we are ultimately taking better care of ourselves. And finally, I ask you to remember these teachings and the environment that we live in, and how precious it is, and how worth caring about it is, and how you too are precious and worth caring about. Thank you.
In my career, I'm focusing on traditional Pawnee foods before Columbus. So no dairy, no chicken, no processed sugar. These foods were forced upon us. Because of that, we now have the highest rates of obesity, heart disease, diabetes, and it's proven that when we stop eating those foods, all of those things go away. Nawa Kutakoka. My name is Hillel Echohawk. I am a member of the Pawnee Nation of Oklahoma. I am also Irish and Athabascan. I own and operate Birch Basket, which is a catering company. For the most part, the events are small enough that I can just do it. But then when it's larger events, I hire people. People who are helping me are both going to be late. He'll be fine. Both going to be late. Indians. So the event that I'm going to cater is the grand opening of the City of Seattle Arts Gala. I am catering for about 125. This is the largest that I've done for my company. The menu is the Pawnee Seed Preservation Blue Corn Mush with Ojibwe maple syrup, honey Lakota popcorn, cedar cooked tepary beans with pine roasted butternut squash, and sweet potatoes with pecans. I always include something from my tribe. It's Pawnee blue corn. You can only get it from the Pawnee Seed Preservation Project. When I grew up, I didn't have it because I grew up in Alaska. Once I started on this path, and I was like, everybody needs to know what this is. I typically hire friends. I try to keep it native. Philip Twist, he was my first boss, actually, in the kitchen. And Brit Reed went to the same culinary school that I went to.
It's beautiful. I was a little disappointed they didn't order any protein.
Yeah, they're not paying enough for protein.
They originally wanted like $1,000 budget.
$1,000 for 150 people. $1,000
Well, actually, it was the city of
for
Seattle.
150 people. We were here until 4 in the morning. I got less than an hour and a half of sleep. The food wasn't getting up to temp fast enough, so that set us back. It just seemed like everything went wrong. Hi, Jenny, it's Hillel. I'm just calling to let you know that I'm running late. I hate being late. I hate it.
Head south on Aurora Avenue north toward John Street, then turn right onto John Street.
If I go back, I'm
Turn
going
right
in a
onto Taylor Avenue
circle.
north.
I'm surprised they haven't been calling me. Hopefully, yeah, I don't know if I can leave this. I'm so embarrassed. This is not a good look.
I see your signature popcorn is here.
A variation of it, yeah. Stressed out. How are you? Noah, my name is Hillel Echohawk, and I am from the Pawnee Nation of Oklahoma. I am very grateful to have been asked to prepare this meal. It's a great honor. It's all pre-colonial. I don't feed our people colonial items. Please enjoy. This event was not typical of a Birch Basket event. So many things went wrong, but people loved the food. You know, I had a couple of people ask me for recipes even, so that was good. In 10 years, I see myself still catering, still doing pop-ups, still doing education. What I would love to see is every tribe in their schools have gardens, teaching kids how to grow food like we used to. If you are part of agriculture, then it helps with that trauma that we've had. We're here to cook a meal for some Indigenous people, some people in the film industry.
I only got 2 dishes to represent myself and my people, so I gotta bring it.
I've never had any food like this.
Have you never heard that?
I'm full-blood Navajo. I got taken away from my parents. I lived with my grandmother. I went to boarding schools, never saw my grandma again. There was just hope that things have got to get better. This can't be the rest of my life. In my youth, I did a lot of art. I won awards in high school. Then life happened. I lost it. the way I grew up, I was always running away. So I ran the furthest I could, and that was Seattle. Mountains, trees, I loved all that. I knew this is going to be my home. I landed a job at a health organization, did that for 15 years, and I ended up getting laid off. I'm Sheridan Cody Bowman. I thought it was going to be so easy. I'll just stay at homeless shelters, give myself a few months, and I'll get a job again. I didn't realize I had an emotional meltdown to the point where I just wasn't caring much for myself anymore. The whole homeless scene was just new to me. I didn't know who to trust, didn't know where to get services, didn't know if these services existed.
I am Lacey, the Native Works manager. A lot of our Native relatives experience homelessness. Native Works is a vocational rehabilitation. We're here to help our relatives get into housing, get jobs, get the help that they need. We train our Native relatives in artisanship, making jewelry, hand printing, greeting cards, and we give them a job.
We're paid for the pieces that we make. We're all apprentices. It makes us feel good. It makes us feel part of something. Here at Native Works, I'm rediscovering art and finding myself again.
And I know we've got a long way to go. But I've got to believe to change the choice, and it can start with me.
I think about the Puget Sound area and our food systems and several landscapes or foodscapes as beginning at the top of the mountains, which are the homes of these large glaciers. Those glaciers feed these swift running rivers that exit into the Puget Sound. Along the way, there are all of these different layers of incredible cultural ecosystems. There are high mountain huckleberry meadows, which we know were maintained over 5,000 years ago. And if you think about that for a minute, that means that my ancestors were in those meadows, burning logs, burning bushes, trailing wild strawberry up the base of huckleberries, reseeding when woolly mammoths were walking through the land. So often in our history lessons, we are looking at things like the Colosseum and the city of Pompeii, which were not even a thought in people's minds in comparison to how long my ancestors have been managing these huckleberry meadows. And then you would come through well-managed forest lands that weren't logged as we see it in modern day times, but trees were fallen and wood was harvested, bark was harvested. And then you would go into a layer of camas meadows that were so abundant you could walk through camas meadows from Canada into Northern California. Then you would come to saltwater beaches that had an abundance of food options there. There were clams and oysters, crabs, seaweed, all kinds of sea life available. And they were also well managed and maintained ecosystems that are now being coined as clam gardens. And then, of course, there's the salmon people who spawn in our riverbeds, go out to sea, have some sort of sea odyssey for a couple of years, and then return to their ancestral rivers to spawn and give life for the next generation to come. And in that action, their mineral-rich bodies feed our rivers, which feed our land, which increase the nutrition and medicine value of all of the land and all of the things that dwell on that landscape. This is all really important to remember when we think about how colonists arrived here and had a completely different take on the landscape. That even Captain Vancouver himself, while he sailed into the Salish Sea, documented that he had never seen land so untouched by man before. And what he didn't know is that he was looking at very well-maintained and manicured gardens, that it was nothing for people to maintain acres of stinging nettle, and not just by harvesting them, but by also fertilizing them. And so I'm not the kind of person that likes to pick away at terms, but when I think about foraging, I think about somebody sort of bumbling through the forest, picking things, and that's not how our ancestors did it. These were very well-maintained gardens. Sure, they didn't look like Mr. McGregor's garden, but they definitely were cared for, and in harvesting with a rich tradition and knowledge base, it actually encouraged the growth of native foods here. So in certain harvesting techniques, whether it's picking a berry or harvesting a wild green, those techniques actually encourage the plant to invigorate more growth. So you may get a better berry crop next year, and you would get a better crop of nettles in the fall. This to me is what happens when you are bound up in your land, the deep connection to land and water for tens of thousands of years. That there is incredible ecological knowledge that's handed down through generations.
Hello and welcome to our fourth day of our Indigenous, Always Indigenous panel and series for you all on behalf of our Chief Seattle Club and our Chief Seattle Club members. My name is Hillel Echohawk. I am an enrolled member of the Pawnee Nation of Oklahoma. I also belong to the Upper Athabascan people of Metasca Lake, Alaska, and I am thrilled to be with you here for the fourth day to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Chief Seattle Club and to showcase some of our amazing programs and also to offer an opportunity for you all to support this work, to donate to the Chief Seattle Club and support bringing in our American Indian Alaska Native people who've been experiencing homelessness, to bring them into shelter, to bring them into housing and into security. The most important thing that we do at the Chief Seattle Club is to provide community and family. And I believe that our mission is one of the most amazing missions of any nonprofit organization. Our mission is to provide sacred space to nurture and affirm the spirit of urban Native people. And we're doing that by providing 7 days a week shelter at the Chief Seattle Club Day Center, but we also are building housing. We're also finding ways to bring people inside to culturally appropriate housing. And we also are creating new programs to help support people getting back on their feet, getting back into stability and on their path to wellness. So I am so excited about today's panel. Some brilliant women are going to share with you some of our amazing work that we're doing with our Native Works program and our new program, Sovereignty Farms. So I'm excited to get to that. I just want to invite you again, though, to donate and donate and donate. Join our sponsors who have already donated to this virtual series. We are so thrilled to have the sponsorship of Zillow, the sponsorship of Comcast, and the sponsorship of the Seattle Kraken. So join the Seattle Kraken in supporting our work. We know that donations, big and small, can make a big difference for us. So you can see that $100 today will provide groceries to 5 homebound elders during COVID-19. And let me tell you, we have flexed our muscles as we have had to respond to COVID-19. We've been open every single day, doing all kinds of new programming because we have folks who really need it. And so it has been vastly important for us to change our methods and try new ways, doing as much as we can outside, and also ensure for folks who are in housing, we're saying to them, please stay in that housing. We will deliver groceries to you. And it has been truly a wonderful experience as we've seen our staff and our Chief Seattle Club members, we're just growing and trying to do the best that we possibly can. So we're excited for you to be here with us today. One thing I want to invite you to think about as we go into this panel, and we're going to show you a video in just a minute, but what does it mean to be a co-conspirator in this work? You know, the Chief Seattle Club has always been supported by non-Native community. You know, we are a Native-led agency now. We have a lot of Native staff who support our members, but we also have co-conspirators that work with us. And you're going to hear from a co-conspirator today, a dear friend of the Chief Seattle Club, Tamara. But, you know, this work of Native Works wouldn't have happened without the co-conspirators at Pike Place Market. You know, we had Ben Franz Knight at the time was the executive director at Pike Place Market, and now Mary Bacello, who is also been just supporting our work and saying, how do we lift up the needs of Native people? How do we help the Chief Seattle Club do this work? And those of you who are non-Native out there listening, we invite you to think about how you be a co-conspirator along with us. We are honored to do this work on behalf of our relatives, and we need your support. The biggest way that you can be that co-conspirator right now is to donate to us, and we're excited just to think about how this will shift as we move into wellness, as we move into just doing all we can to get our folks inside and out of the brain. So we're excited to share with you a video that we have put together with the support of Jeff Barehand and Sky Bear Media. This video showcases the work of Native Works, our apprenticeship program. This is a workforce development program to help our folks get back into the workforce by supporting them through traumas they might have experienced around working, and also their trauma that they've had from sleeping outside and being homeless. So this video is a tribute to our Native Works team and a tribute to our staff that have made this happen. So let's see the video.
The Pike Place Market is proud to have helped initiate the Native Works program. We're honored to help find opportunities for Native artisans to sell their work and to learn new skills that will ensure that they thrive. We recognize that we are on Coast Salish land and believe that supporting Native Works is essential as our city moves towards racial equity and justice.
How do we address homelessness? It's a battle on all fronts. Employment is necessary to rehabilitation. Our apprentices get to create, work with their hands. They are paid $15.75 an hour to create everything that we make. We were able to set up a table here at Pike Place Market. One of the biggest impacts that I've seen in our apprentices' lives is that connection to culture, connection to community, connection to the artwork. Being able to sell our products at Pike Place Market has enabled us to reach out to more funders and allies in getting the land that we plan to have at the farm. We'll be able to supply the Chief Seattle Club kitchen with produce. We'll be able to supply our members with medicines. We'll be able to have a space where our members can go work in the land and be in the land.
Boxes are good for your home, these farm gardens. We don't have a property, a big place like the Sovereignty Farms. Sovereignty Farm will help us get back to our roots to the things that we need to grow for ourselves. All these things that we eat in our daily life.
Our community has faced so much historical, intergenerational trauma. I cannot wait to see all the beautiful healing transformations that are going to take place at the farm.
I'm not sure how to explain all that. Just have to go and do it.
Naha, nanisa hetanashi ninano aani danaina. Hello, my relatives. My name is Lacey Warrior. I'm an enrolled member of the Ninilchik Village tribe. I'm also descent of the Aani Nation in Montana. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We are going to be hearing from some incredibly inspiring people today about the importance of food sovereignty and ecosystems in the urban environment. So joining us today are Valerie Segrest from the Muckleshoot Indian Tribe and Native American Agriculture Fund, Brit Reed, who is Choctaw and an Indigenous chef and advisor on food sovereignty. We have Tamara Power-Drutis, the creator of the Growing Old Project and the Chief Seattle Club Landowner, and as well as Hillel Echohawk, who is Pawnee and Athabascan and owner of Birch Basket Catering Company. Hi. Thanks so much for being here with us today, you guys. Yeah. Awesome. So food sovereignty is so important to our urban Native communities. And as food is a part of our everyday lives, the impacts of being disconnected from our traditional food systems are vast and varied, for all the way from the effects of the health on our physical bodies, all the way to, our spiritual relationships with the land and each nation's self-determination and sovereignty. I wouldn't feel right talking about food sovereignty if we didn't talk also about what's happening to our Mi'kmaq relatives in Nova Scotia and their rights, their fishing rights under Treaty 1752 are under attack. It's just a few days ago their fishery was burnt to the ground. And so I would love to encourage everybody listening, our audience today, to look into ways that you can support our relatives in Nova Scotia experiencing this. And then I'd like to introduce Valerie. Thank you so much for coming today. I'm so excited to talk with you about this. I've been an admirer and fan of yours from afar for quite some time, and I'm really excited to be able to talk with you today.
Oh, it's such an honor to be here. I really appreciate the invite and opportunity to get on a soapbox about all the things I love.
Yes. Awesome. Well, I'd like to could you tell us a little bit about your work with Native American Agriculture Fund and how that's going?
Sure. My name is Valerie Segrest. I'm a member of the Muckleshoot tribe. I come from the Wilbur and Purcell families, which spans Suquamish, Swinomish, Snoqualmie, all over. Means basically I'm related to everybody in Western Washington. I went to school for nutrition and also for studying community food systems. And I didn't want to be the kind of nutritionist that sat behind a desk and encouraged people to eat a diet that they didn't have access to. And so in 2009, I launched the Muckleshoot Food Sovereignty Project. And for over a decade have been working with my community based off of their desires and where they want to take the method of food sovereignty and build out programs like curriculum and policy work and food spaces, food resource, inventory resource projects. And after a decade of doing that, I really wanted to see what else was happening across the country, and just joined the Native American Agriculture Fund last September to we exist out of a court case that was a discrimination case against Native American farmers and ranchers and food producers back in the 1980s, filed against the USDA. After 20 years, we won. And the trust agreement that we are harbored under is essentially built out of becoming a remedy to increasing the equality for people in tribal communities who want to be food producers. And we do that through supporting food sovereignty efforts, through building infrastructure, helping to support the infrastructure of food projects. And then we, as a group of folks who have been doing this work for a long time, are also coming up with really important strategies. We only have 18 years to exist. So NAF Native American Agriculture Fund has 18 years to get it right. And time is flying by. So I'll take this opportunity really seriously and want to make sure we push out and advocate as best as possible. So we're building out an infrastructure, food infrastructure vision and mission, which that's going to be coming out by the end of the year, and has been a really honor to work on that whole strategy as a country, what we can do to support Native American food producers and ultimately increase access to food is so awesome. And then we're also about to launch what we're predicting to be the largest hunger survey for Native American people. This was based out of my boss, Janie Hip, learning after, and I love her so much. I feel so lucky to work with her. After COVID happened and everybody sheltered in place, she started calling up folks and sort of figured out really quickly that Native people are not written into the emergency food assistance program from the federal government. We're actually totally not included at all. And this infuriated her and all of us. And so we really want to make sure that these gaps that have been illuminated are addressed through the work that we're doing with NAF. And change that kind of, like never again should America's first citizens be the last in line to receive food during an emergency like a pandemic. And so that's the real reality of what we're living in to this day. There's been lots of growth in acknowledging the fractured system that Native people have been left to deal with. And we know, you know, for us, food sovereignty is really that, like, our food is our medicine, our food is our culture. And so for us, food sovereignty is the right to heal from our historical trauma and the wounds from that, and to also practice our culture. So to me, this work is obviously really important, and I'm trying to say it in 6 minutes. Sorry.
No, that was great. It's so inspiring to hear you speak with so much passion about our food systems, and particularly about, you know, how the first people here should never, ever be the last people in line for food. And I think that's why it's so important that we seek these opportunities to grow our own food. Thank you so much. That was so beautiful. And then I would love to bring in our next panelist, Brit Reed. Hi.
Hello.
It's been a minute since I've seen you. It's so good to see you on here.
Good to see you too.
Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit about your work in Indigenous food advocacy and that work that you're doing, and as far as like diverse Native American foods, and you know how it how all of our different tribes have different food systems that we use?
Yeah, sure. So I kind of came into I guess what some people are calling the Native American food revitalization movement. This is a movement that has been going on since before the 70s. Akwesasne up in Canada / New York have been doing this work since before it was even coined food sovereignty. And there's been a very strong through line to today. I myself was very inspired by Valerie Segrest while I was in grad school, and saw her work as well as the work of Winona LaDuke and some other folks. And so what's been happening is essentially that since particularly the 70s, tribes have been going back and finding their traditional seeds that they've grown historically. So it's not just that they're growing corn, but they're finding the ancestral seeds that have been growing since millennia. And then other tribes that weren't agriculturalists have also, of course, been continuing the practices of educating people in their tribes about like what are the traditional foods and medicines that you can get out on the land and in the waters and in the forest and things like that. And of course, like much like how we would understand like different areas around the world to have different kinds of foods, our tribes are 100% have like our own cuisines. Even where I hail from a southeastern tribe, and like what would be like not southeastern Alaska, but like southeastern the United States, even between the Cherokee, the Chickasaw, the Muskogee, and the Seminole, we all have similar dishes, but we all call them different things, and have like a little different variations on those. And so it's really important to understand that we're all working specifically from our land bases, which is what Valerie talks about a lot. And so that gives us a very like specific like cuisine that we're all eating and going back to and making relations with.
Awesome. Yeah. I think it's just so cool that we can all be inspired by each other's work and this effort to bring our foods back to our people. And it's really wonderful to hear that it's been, you know, that we've been working at this so long, and, you know, these projects are coming out and, you know, people are doing the work. And so it's just so wonderful to hear. And I just also wanted to know from you, Brit, how has your work with I Collective kind of blossomed?
Yeah, I was invited to be a part of a pop-up in New York City along with Hillel and the rest of the folks in the I Collective back in 2017 while I was still in culinary school at Seattle Culinary Academy. And we did a several-day pop-up there to address the myth of Thanksgiving, and also to work in solidarity with workers who are undocumented in a bakery in New York City. And those went really well. I think that I've been really thankful that because of that pop-up and also because of the co-conspirators that have worked with our collective over the course of the years, that we've been able to have a larger platform to be able to speak about traditional foods and food sovereignty, And from that as well, like another aspect of our collective, what a lot of people do see is, of course, this like cooking a lot, pre-colonial foods, and then also, like being in the media and stuff. But I think the real important is the individual work that we do. And so like for myself, I work for the Tulalip Diabetes Program. And in that program, we work specifically with not just the Tulalip tribal community, but also with enrolled members that live like any tribes that live in the Snohomish County. And one of the more beautiful things that I've seen is to be able to be a part of like them going back and being in gardens and being able to interact with plants, like specifically like where they're growing in either like our garden that we have behind the clinic, or whether that be up at Garden Treasures, which is a farm up in Arlington. And so that's been like a really beautiful and healing thing. And also going out and being able to go out and gather things like salmon berries with them and be able to show like how to process food.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, and also like doing all the things.
That's so amazing. Yeah, I love to hear about all of the the existing gardens that are in the Coast Salish area right now. But I'm also really excited to start the Sovereignty Farm. Our work at Chief Seattle Club is to nurture and affirm and renew the spirit of urban Native people. And so part of that work is to help our members to reconnect to these things, our culture in that way. And that is, this farm is going to be that. And this would not have been possible without our wonderful landowner, Tamara Power-Drutis. Hi, welcome. So good to see you. Tamara is
so good to see you. All of you.
Yeah. Tamara is the creator of the Growing Old project and our landowner. I'm so happy that you're here to talk with us.
I'm just really excited to be part of this project and happy to be with you all as well. I've also been inspired by Valerie's work, so I feel like there's a theme going on here.
Definitely. And I wanted to talk to you about, like, what does it mean to be a landowner on Coast Salish territory? And, what led you to be a co-conspirator in our work?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that I continue to learn about and to figure out what the implications of it mean for me in my life personally. Throughout my life, home has always been on either Coast Salish or interior Salish lands, but it wasn't until adulthood that I even began to understand that colonization wasn't something from the history books. It was, something that's playing out right now. So that understanding has led me to realize that me owning property here in Seattle is part of a centuries-long land grab and takeover of Coast Salish land. Because of that, I really believe that the answer to that question is going to come from Native leadership and Native-led organizations, but that there are some early steps that seem a little bit more clear in terms of what that land ownership can look like. So for me, that's just that at every decision point about what we plant, what we cut down, what we build, how we use space, who we partner with, that every single step and decision point along that way is an opportunity to be an ally or to be a co-conspirator in this work and to pivot even just a little bit toward decolonization.
Oh, that's super inspiring. And, I think that, we've got a lot of community members can learn a lot from, your really giving and generous heart. And, we're just at the club, we're so grateful to you. This farm is just going to be so many layers of healing for our members. And I'm so excited to begin, getting apprentices into the land and to see it and start working with the plants there. Look at that. Oh, I'm just so excited. We've already got interest from, some of our members here at the club already are really excited about this opportunity to get in the land and start, even just with their hands and just learning about the ceremonies that could take place, when you're planting and harvesting and things like that. And so it's just going to be an incredibly healing time for our members. And Thank you so much. Can you tell us a little bit about what the farm looks like right now?
Yeah, definitely. So there's some photos that are going across the screen, and there was one early on where it was just kind of all green and lush, and it looked very vibrant, but actually it was just all overgrown by blackberries. And this is what the property looked like when we first came. And so, it looks very lush, but kind of underneath all of that, there's a fig tree covered in 16-foot blackberries. There's old appliances that have been discarded and overgrown by blackberries. There are 2 boats. There's piles of trash with rugs over them, also grown over by blackberries. So it was a multi-year process early on to just kind of reclaim this space and make it something that could grow food in a healthy way. And we had a bit of a interspecies collaboration to do so. My dad and I were partners in this work, but we also partnered with 13 really awesome goats who helped us eat back some of that blackberry and brought in fresh soil, did soil testing. You can see on the screen, there's a blackberry root that's literally the size of my head. And that's just kind of an everyday digging up experience at the farm. But as we reclaimed that space, it just became, it looked small when it was covered in blackberries. As soon as we got those blackberries pushed away, it was so much land, it was so much space, and it was so clear that we did not need all of this. This was not space that we needed. And so we started working with community-sourced agriculture groups to turn it into a little urban farm. And that's what it's been for the last several years. And it's just been a real joy. I was raised over in Eastern Washington, so it just feels really natural to have farming around. And it's something that I've missed coming into the urban setting. So it's been really cool to see it become that. And early on when we were clearing the land and restoring it, we really didn't have a clear sense of what we were clearing it for or what it would become in the future. But I know when I got that call from Chief Seattle Club about turning this into sovereignty farms, it just felt like that is what the space was meant to be for. So I'm really overjoyed to be a part of this. I feel really grateful and lucky to be working with such good friends and such strong community that's so grounded in these food sovereignty principles. So just want to thank you for including me as a partner.
Yes. Oh man. Yeah, I'm so excited. Look how beautiful.
And stuff loves to grow there.
Yes. Oh man. And our apprentices are, getting excited about a possible opportunity to go visit and just see what it's like now. And so that's going to be super exciting.
Yeah.
Yay. Thank you so much, Tamara.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I wanted to introduce our next panelist, which is Hillel Echohawk. And I think we have audio of Hillel. Hi. Are you there? Well, Hillel is Pawnee and Athabascan. He's the owner of Church Basket. Hi.
Hi,
And she's
can
been
you hear me?
working. Yes, we can.
Yeah, great. I keep getting cut off.
Oh no, I'm so sorry. Well, Hillel has been.
I don't.
Hillel's been involved in helping us to develop and curate our menu for this cafe with all of the foods that we want to source for our cafe is going to come from Sovereignty Farm. And so, we're really excited about, getting our people into the farm to start planting all of these things like corn and beans and squash and nettle and all of the different wonderful dishes that could potentially happen from that. It's going to be super awesome. Are you there? Hello?
Yeah, I hope so. Hello?
Hi. Well, thank you so much for being here. And we seem to be having some audio troubles on your end, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about how Hillel has helped us to think of some dishes that we can serve at the cafe based
It's
on
like
the food.
freezing. No.
Hi. Oh man, well, she looks like she's still frozen, but we've had I had some wonderful conversations with Hillel about creating a menu that that's going to be all traditional dishes that'll be very simple and easy for our apprentices to cook up and serve at the cafe that's going to be in our new housing building, the all building. That cafe is going to open when that building opens, October 2021. I'm super excited to be able to offer this space of community and really share our traditions of food and culture. So very, very excited about that. And so I just wanted to move on to have some questions from the audience for our panelists. So I'm going to look and see. Let's see here. All right. So we have some audience members asking to share a little bit more about the cafe. This one is coming from Facebook. And I just talked a little bit about the cafe, but you know, this because we're able to develop sovereignty farm, you know, of course we want to be able to bring produce and medicines to the Chief Seattle Club, but we also have this amazing planned space that's going to be on the main floor of the new all building. It'll be a cafe, an art gallery. We're planning to get some. Yeah, well, we're planning to host a number of different programs in the space as well. There's hoping to do some storytelling hours and specifically about our traditional foods. We're hoping to have some art shows. And so that space is just really going to be one of community for the whole broader Seattle community to come and connect with us and connect with our culture and connect with our members and, you know, just really learn about what we're doing here and how we're creating this sacred space for our members. And really, really excited to be on the planning side of that. It's going really, really well so far. So October 2021, look out for your new favorite food spot. All right, and then I just wanted to grab a couple more questions from the audience. So Britt, you mentioned, oh, here we go. Here's a question right here. Valerie, recently listened to you on an episode. It was so interesting. Looking forward to hearing more today. Thank you, Francis, Miranda. Thank you. All right. So, Britt, you mentioned that you about the Akwesasne and how they have been doing this work for a really long time. This Indigenous Foods Revitalization project for a really long time, and we have a question about you know, are you working with Indigenous farmers and producers on the East Coast currently?
Yeah, both me and Hillel are working with farmers from the East Coast. We actually work with different native producers from all over the United States and Canada. A lot of tribes right now are creating like different businesses or farms or different ways to provide traditional foods to people throughout definitely their communities and also to make it available to a lot of people throughout the United States and Canada. Because as we know, 70% of our native populations actually live in urban centers and not actually on reservations. And so it's really important to be able to have ways to be able to get traditional foods to people who aren't on the reservations as well as on the reservations too. So we actually have a list of those producers, and we can definitely, if Lacey and Colleen and everyone's all right with it, we can definitely send that out to you. It's quite an extensive one, and it does go by region, so you can see specifically where these specific producers and farms are at.
Yes, that would be amazing. Yeah, I'm very, very interested to learn more about that. Let's see. I'm trying to look for another question here. We have a question about how do we apply to be a part of the farm and where is it located? So, Tamara, can you tell us a little bit about the location of the farm?
Yeah, definitely. So the farm is about 3/4 of an acre located in the Rainier Beach community. And in the future, whenever they put a light rail stop at Ryan Way, it will be within walking distance to a light rail. But for now, it's kind of at the very bottom of a dead-end road. And it's kind of the only place on that whole road right now.
Yeah, I've been a couple of times, and I'm really, really excited. Part of what we're doing for the program is to make sure that we have transportation for all of our apprentices who are going to be working at the farm. And so, we really need people to keep donating today. We're working on reaching out for funding for all of the equipment we're going to need at the farm. So keep those donations coming in. All right, we have another question. Where there will be an opportunity for non-native friends to share their gardening skills with these projects. This is something that we can definitely have conversations about and start thinking about, as we develop programming that's going to be happening at the farm. We're really excited to, get this up and running. And so, yeah, that's definitely a conversation that we can have.
And if you want to get involved this winter, we are always fighting blackberries there. It's very poetically or metaphorically rewarding work. So you're welcome to come join us for just getting the land really ready for all of the farming that's coming.
We have another really good question here. Are there programs to teach home gardening, and would they teach how to grow some food at home? And I think the answer to that question is absolutely yes. We are working with Victoria Plumage, who's going to be starting off managing the farm, Sovereignty Farm, and she's currently developing curriculum based off of what we plan to grow right now. And we can definitely talk with Victoria about some programs about how to teach how to do that in your own home. So for sure. I would like to check in with Hillel. How are you doing, Hillel?
I'm okay. Yeah, I think I finally got the internet figured out here. I'm actually on the East Coast right now doing an iCollective event, and so I'm not there. I'm not home.
Well, it's so nice to see you, and I'm so glad you were able to join us.
It's not my internet. Yeah. Colleen was texting me like, "You better be on."
We have one more question.
Yeah, this is something I wasn't going to miss.
We have one more question here that looks like we should get this. How is it possible that Native Americans aren't included? Well, there you go. I would love to talk with Valerie. How is it possible that Native Americans aren't included in federal emergency food relief?
Yeah, I am not sure. I think even Janie was baffled by it, and it is something that we hope to see happen. And that's sort of our response was to really think about the food infrastructure program. There are lots of gaps in those policies too, by the way. Like, it's actually written in law where if tribes are utilizing their food commodity program and there's a surplus, they if the state requests it, then they would have to hand their surplus over to the state. So what we think, when we think about a food system that's strong and addresses food security, and also prioritizes people's health, it's all an illusion when it comes to federal feeding programs. There's a lot of work to still be done there, and like I said, I feel like it's been moving in the right direction, but not fast enough, and certainly not in a time when we are in a state of emergency and being told to shelter in place. We were hearing stories from all over the country of folks who live hours away from a grocery store, who were sent home, furloughed from their job from their tribal government, and didn't have funds to participate in panic buying, basically. And then when they would drive 3 hours one way to a store, finding a shelf bare, turning around only to do it again the next day. It was heartbreaking to hear these stories coming through. But at the same time, for us, the remedy was listening to all the grassroots efforts that we are helping to fund, and how they were able to pivot. And because they are so rich in community resources, that these grassroots organizations like Chief Seattle Club, and when they're properly supported and lifted up, they are the people that we lean into in times of crisis. And I think you see that with the way the club has, immediately opened its doors. I know that all of you have been working really hard, long days, long nights, worrying about the population that you serve, and knowing that that you have the thumb on the pulse of exactly what their needs are. That's incredible. And that's why it's really important to support and bolster up the efforts of organizations that have those grassroots campaigns, just like Chief Seattle Club. So I really hope that comes across here today, that this is supporting this work really does mean saving lives, and it really does animate a culture of feeding people and a culture of health.
Yes, thank you so much. I love what you said about, us having a thumb on the pulse of what our members need. We see a lot of our members who've experienced so much trauma that, just the idea and the fact that we're taking steps to develop this farm and the cafe is, we're trying to help and assist in the healing of those traumas. And I really, really believe wholeheartedly that this farm is going to, create some incredibly beautiful transformations and healing in our members and our apprentices' lives. And I'm so excited for it. And I just, I had a question for, another question for you, Valerie, from our audience. It says, question from Stacy Marshall on Facebook. She says, our farm is just outside of Poulsbo. I would love to know how we might be able to support Indigenous food sovereignty here at our farm in partnership with local tribal communities.
I really think that there's great opportunity for farms to support access to healthy foods. I went to school at Bastyr University on the northern tip of Lake Washington, and as a nutrition student, we had a program there at the time where all of our beds were donated, like foods donated to organizations like Lettuce Links and Northwest Harvest. And essentially what we want to see happen in the urban community to be able to increase access to healthy foods for members of the club, to even just urban natives that are trying to eat healthier, is to increase access to those foods. So you could just dedicate a whole garden bed to produce, and a lot of our foods are growable here. That's the good news, right? Think about squash or sunflower seeds or salal. A lot of the native plants that grow here are, I personally like them because I'm a lazy gardener, so I just stick them in the ground and I ignore them, and then I have a harvest. So it can even just be like a hedgerow of a salal berry or a salmon berry, plants that you actually can get at a really low rate from conservation districts who have plant sales in the early spring. I think I got a row of high bush cranberry for $10. I mean, it's amazing how easy it is to grow these native foods, but also that there are, native foods representing all over America that are totally growable in our gardens here in the Northwest. So I think that would be a really great way to help support it. And I'm sure that I've actually done that for the Chief Seattle Club. I've just come in with a bucket of tea, right? And handed you guys peppy nettle tea. And hopefully it's just out there on the counter for members to drink every single day. So I don't think there might be some need to handle the donation and how to receive it. But if you plan for it, it seems super easy to do.
Yeah, we have, our members, that's one thing that our members really enjoy is being able to have a cup of tea here at the club. And I think that, just the offering of having tea is so healing for our members. And then, I mean, even if you just set aside the healing properties that the tea itself carries. So just to have access to that is so wonderful. So great. I have another question here. When Sovereignty Farm Cafe reopens next year, will they be offering apprentice programs to work in the kitchen? And that is from Rosa Melendando on Facebook. And actually, yes, I can answer that question. We're excited that there's going to be an apprenticeship in the kitchen here at the Chief Seattle Club, and that will bring produce in from the farm and prep it all here up in the Chief Seattle Club kitchen and take it right next door to the cafe to serve. We're so excited. There's several tasty dishes to include, and we're really excited. I'm personally most excited about the bison tacos. Every time I talk about them, I get hungry. Let's see, I have another question, and
they're gonna be good.
Yeah. I have another question here. It says, I'm an ecology student at UW. Is the farm going to incorporate traditional farming and gardening methods? What are some of them? And we have, let's see. Let's have Tamara answer this question. We have, she's been talking with Victoria on what the land needs there to get that going. So
yeah, I was gonna say I feel like we need Victoria to pop in right now, because she's been the expert planning out how we're going to be organizing that on the farm. But we're going to be we have the water infrastructure in currently, and the hill is on a slant, and so there is some opportunity to capture water as it's running down and reuse it. Or to incorporate rainwater elements of it. My understanding is that it's going to be all native foods, and I assumed, a lot of traditional methods being used to manage it, but I think we'll have to have a follow-up event to talk more about those.
Absolutely. And, in addition to those farming methods, we plan to reach out to, spiritual leaders in the community and those who know these practices of, singing for the land when you plant and when you harvest, and, bringing those teachings back to our members is, again, whole another level of healing, cultural healing for our members. And something that I'm very, very passionate about and excited for. So, all right, we've got some time for one last question, I think. Well, I think that we'll start with a little bit of a wrap up here. I love seeing all of your faces on this screen right now. This has just been such a wonderful conversation with all of you. And, I really want to do it again soon. We have so much that we can all learn from each other. And I'm just so grateful for you guys being here. It's been, we've been talking about this farm for quite a while, and all of your help and assistance, really helps not only us do our jobs better, but it improves and makes a big impact in the lives of our members, which is, this is what we're here for, is to help the healing of our members here experiencing homelessness. So again, I'm so grateful for all of you to be here. Thank you so much. And then I wanted to pass it back. I'm going to pass it right on back to you, Tamara.
Yeah, so it's my honor to be here today, and I want to ask all of you to support the Chief Seattle Club. I've been volunteering with the club for a few years now, and I just see case after case after case why this is where Seattle needs to be putting our resources and our support. The mainstream human services, health, housing, they've been unable to serve the Native community effectively because these same services have historically been used against the Native community. So Chief Seattle Club, though, has been able to establish safe, culturally appropriate housing where people feel welcome. And the staff continue members while they're navigating the pandemic in their own lives and families, while they're breaking ground on this incredible new all building, and while navigating what are just continuously torrential waves of 2020. There's not a lot of organizations operating like the Chief Seattle Club, but there should be. On Coast Salish lands, it's astonishing that 15% of homeless people are Native, and Natives are only 1% of our population. This disparity is outrageous, and we need to change it. But what if we did more than just change it? What if we flipped those statistics? It would be a powerful model for Seattle, which is, a city named after a Native chief, to become a place where 15% of the population and growing are Native, and less than 1% of those experiencing homelessness are Native. But flipping that statistic isn't something that happens tomorrow or next funding cycle. It's not something that waits for government to start truth and reconciliation or land reparations. It's something that happens right now by all of us taking action today, by being co-conspirators, by following the lead of Native-led organizations who are already doing this work and doing it really well. So this is the Chief Seattle Club's biggest annual fundraiser. And continuing the momentum of the club's success depends on everyone recognizing the value of Native-led human services and housing for the Native community, and all of us coming together to support that work. There are a lot of calls out there to stop letting allyship be something that's one-dimensional or merely symbolic, and this is an opportunity to do that. So please give generously, donate to chiefseattleclub.org, or you can mail a check to the club if you'd prefer. And I just want to personally thank the Chief Seattle Club for bringing us together. Jeff and Olivia, thank you so much for all of your incredible organizing. Lacey for hosting today's discussion. And want to thank you all for joining us and for your generosity.
Wow. Thank you so much, Tamara. We are so thrilled to partner with you, to work alongside you in, bringing back this land to Indigenous communities. And it's just such an honor to get to work with you. And, you and I have a very long friendship and partnership. And I think a lot about, what does it mean for Native people to take our place in the city? What does it mean for us to be offering leadership in homeless advocacy, for instance, which is what we're doing. And you have just walked alongside us every step of the way. I wanted to put in a big plug for the podcast that we did together called the Growing Old podcast. We invite you to check it out. We talk a lot about what does it mean to, number one, what does it mean that Seattle is a Native city? And how do we understand the perplexity of not having Indigenous plants, not having Indigenous trees as part of our cityscape? And what would it look like in 50 years if we reimagine some of these spaces? So it has been such a fun thing to walk alongside you, and we're so appreciative of all your support and partnership, Tamara. We like you.
I like you too. The pleasure's all mine, and I just having such wonderful friends and partners in this work. Really appreciate being included in it.
Awesome. Well, I also want to thank our panel. Thank you so much to Lacey Warrior for her support and advocacy and leadership of our Native Works program. We're also thrilled that Brit Reed could join us. And of course, Valerie Segrest. Oh my goodness. Valerie, you have such a long history with Chief Seattle Club. We're so grateful. Then, of course, my wonderful sister Hillel calling in from the East Coast. We didn't get to hear much from you, but we invite you all to take a look at some of her work and think about her for Birch Basket Catering. We just want to say thank you for you all for being here It's been wonderful. Tomorrow, we have our final day of our virtual series. This day will focus on the history of Chief Seattle Club. We also will be spending some time with some tributes, thinking about the folks that helped get us to this place. We'll be offering the first ever Stiff Arm Visionary Leadership Award, which we are going to be giving to Denise Stiff Arm. And then we'll also be giving the first Trisha Trainer Spirit Award to Trisha Trainer. So please join us. We're excited to get to think about this beautiful history of how we've gotten from where we were 50 years ago to where we're at today. So thank you all. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And don't forget to think about a donation to the Chief Seattle Club. We love and appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Stone Gossard, and I'm here with Mike McCready, and we're welcoming you to the annual Chief Seattle Lunch. We're honored to be here, and we're honored to be part of bringing this welcome pole back to Salish land. We want to thank everyone for coming today. We want to welcome everybody and encourage everybody to be generous. We're in unprecedented times, and the emergency that we're facing in regards to homelessness and food shortages is bound to get worse. And I think right now, as Seattleites, we need to find our most generous spirits and really dig as deep as we can to help alleviate some of this suffering.
Going to the luncheon last year was very enlightening in terms of hearing about the new facilities that they're building for the Indigenous homeless population of Seattle, and the fundraising they need to do that, and the ties to the community that we all need to be part of and need to be. I feel like we can help. I love being part of that kind of thing. Hopefully, to be part of a solution.
You can't live in Seattle and not have experienced the horror of seeing people living on the streets and living in tents, and the disconnect between how much money there is in this city and how we have been unable to solve this issue is something that it makes us all crazy. And I think our impetus for the home show was that obviousness, and Chief Seattle Club has been on the forefront of confronting that obviousness, and we want to continue to work with them as they take up the unique challenge of facing First Peoples and Indigenous peoples homelessness, and veterans homelessness, housing inequality. Those kinds of issues they have to be addressed, and we hope to assist in some way in helping them do that.
We're very passionate about wanting to support the Chief Seattle Club and homeless Indigenous population of Seattle. We feel like the Chief Seattle Club does a fantastic job and continues to. We are in crazy times right now, as we all know, and more than ever, we need to donate money and time to these kind of to this organization, and we're happy to be part of that, and our band is doing the same. Thank you.
On top of a donation that Pearl Jam is making towards the welcome pole, we are also making a $50,000 pledge to Chief Seattle Club as a collaboration with Pearl Jam in regards to directly adding funds for emergency food and shelter for next year. We hope that we can get others to join us as well. We know that we will have an unprecedented challenge ahead, and we're looking forward to that challenge and appreciate everybody coming today. So thank you so much.